Ashley Taylor, and back in January, I attended a KGIS event along with some of my friends. One of the presenters there was Dr. Shankar, a planetary scientist. The event was very informative, but after, my friends and I still had a few more questions. We reached out to Dr. Shankar, who was kind enough to get back to us and answer our questions. Thank you, Dr. Shankar. And here is our report.
Hi, Dr. Shankar. This is Emma. Thank you so much for speaking with us today. Dr. Shankar, we are expected to know what we want to become at such a young age. How did you know you wanted to be?
Great question, Emma. I guess I didn't know right from the start that I wanted to become a scientist, but I guess in my family, my parents were scientists, so it probably was a very natural way to just do things or discuss or tune into TV shows that were all around the general topic of science and STEM. But I have to say, when I was in high school, I had the opportunity, like most of us in our high schools, to volunteer and pick an organization that we would enjoy having that opportunity. And it was through that experience during my high school days that I found the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada, which is a nationwide astronomy outreach focused organization, where that's their whole goal, is to educate and engage the public in astronomy topics through night sky viewing parties, hosting, having questions addressed. And that opportunity for me was really my first real exposure in the whole subject of astronomy, which I seemed to enjoy as a kid, but I was like, what does one do? So I met many in the community that were avid astronomers. They loved looking at the sky, be it in the day or at night. And really that opportunity allowed me to see my own very first lunar eclipse. I was thrilled, and it sort of was a sure opportunity for me to say, hey, I want to see where this goes. I met professionals who had, gone through some form of training. I got to talk to them, ask them questions, and by the time it came to applying for post-secondary programs, I kept an eye out on what was available, and so on and so forth. I continued on. I loved my master's project that looked at data from Venus. I didn't even know that that was a possibility, and that inspired me to continue and get a PhD afterwards. And I have to say, each experience, while unique on its own, has always sort of fueled my excitement about space, about astronomy, about geology, and the idea that you can combine two different science fields and create a career out of that. And that is a real opportunity. So long story short, I guess it is, if you're passionate about a topic, explore it. Reach out to people around you who might be able to tell you a little bit about it. And if they don't know, we now live in a very digital age where we are able to find that out a little more easily. So once you find someone who is of interest in a topic that you're also curious to know about, reach out to them, and that will be and volunteer and get as much opportunities to delve into that topic as early as possible. I noticed you had asked about who has inspired me. Certainly my parents, because they gave me that opportunity to just explore, and if they didn't know an answer, they helped me figure out who to approach in that process. My mentors through my learning journey, so my advisors, a few teachers along the road, certainly had that much passion in them about a certain topic, which was something I fed off of, and that was certainly memorable moments.
Hi, Dr. Shankar, Eva here. I was at your Cadus event in Toronto. It was great, by the way, thank you. But Dr. Shankar, what impact do you as an inspiring female scientist hope to make on our youth today?
Great question, Eva. I feel as a scientist, it is my responsibility and my duty in many ways to communicate the science in an effective way to a broad audience about the relevance of the science topic. Often for me, it's about space and the relevance of space exploration, and communicate and in many ways educate my audience about why that's important. What does that help us with? And why we should all have an approach that is unbiased, that is has some degree of critical thinking in addressing a question. Often we may not know the circumstances or parameters really that can control a result, but we have to think of all opportunities and of all ways to approach a scientific question that we are interested in. So that's my responsibility as a scientist, to communicate that. But as a female scientist, that I take that a bit more personally, because I am a South Asian woman in the STEM fields, and I have to admit, in my growing journey, as I was a child and as I became a professional, it was very hard for me to find other female scientists who were space scientists, and in particular female scientists that were in doing things that were, making the news. It was very hard to find that. I don't even think I realized that there wasn't a good equal representation. But of late, in becoming more active in the science communication community, it has become more apparent that we need that sort of representation and awareness on who's doing what. That way we can inspire other scientists who may be early in their journey, and in particular to young budding scientists who are also equally curious about exploring and trying things and asking why, or why do we want to know something, or why is it important to know, and sort of providing them opportunities to be curious. And so that is where myself as a female scientist from a community of South Asian descent, I feel it is important to share my journey and to share my experiences, and in some ways hopefully inspire others to follow in whatever they are interested in pursuing.
Hi, Dr. Shankar. I have another question for you. I believe that there are not many female planetary scientists in Canada, or even in the world. What advice would you have for girls who would want to be a planetary scientist just like you?
You raise an interesting point, Ashley, but I am happy to report that we do have several women space scientists right here in Canada. Probably the most recognizable role or career is as an astronaut. Canada has 3 women astronauts, and they have all been up to space, and they have actively worked on some level or participation in building the International Space Station. But beyond being an astronaut, many scientists that are and professionals that are in the space community also have backgrounds and trainings in being either a doctor or an engineer or a kinesiologist or a psychologist or a geologist, a biologist, a mathematician, a flight controller, a science communicator, and an engineer. So if you are interested in any of these themes, topics, or careers, there is quite likely a career even within the space sector. And there are women in each and all of these roles right here in Canada. But I also wanted to mention that the International Space Station is the science lab that is orbiting right above us on Earth. And it has a broader community of professionals, space professionals from different countries. So I mentioned about 3 women astronauts from Canada, but there are easily 30 other women that have gone up in space and have been part of either the International Space Station's activities or earlier versions of other science labs orbiting Earth. Did you know that the first woman in space was from Russia or USSR back in those days, and she went up in space in 1963. So there are many, many female space scientists and professionals all around us. We also now live in a very digitally active age and time, so it is quite easy for us to find others through either the hashtags of Women in Space or Women in STEM, and find out who's around us and near us. So I would encourage you and your audience to look us up. And if you have any questions, certainly reach out to us.
Hello, Dr. Shankar. My name is Brooklyn. I went to your Kega session in London, Ontario. I have one more question for you. My question is, what training do astronauts have to do in order to go to space?
Great question, Brooklyn. Astronauts have quite a rigorous training schedule. The moment that they learn that they have been chosen as an astronaut, they have several years of training where they form a class with other astronauts from other countries that are all part of that, that training class. They spend several years learning different languages, because where they're headed currently to the International Space Station, you need to be proficient in several languages. And so they get that training. But then they also get a lot of training about how to be physically fit while you're up in space. That how does your body interact when there is no gravity? So you're pretty much weightless, and yet you are meant to wear a spacesuit and do a lot of common tasks while you're essentially doing maintenance on the space station, and what it takes to work as a team, because you're not up there on your own, you're working with others. Quite often they may be from a different country, representing a different country. So global cooperation is one of those things where it is something that every astronaut will need to train on. How are they going to do their tasks and also be able to take some downtime and do all of this when you're in constrained spaces? So this is quite often a lot of where that time and several years goes into training and becoming an astronaut. I'm glad you asked this question, because right now we just learned that the Canadian Space Agency has extended their Junior Astronaut Challenge to the end of next month, so end of April. So if you don't know what this is, the Junior Astronaut Challenge is something that the Canadian Space Agency has put out there to young Canadians to get a feel of what it's like to be an astronaut. So they have challenges in 3 different streams: teamwork and communication, fitness and nutrition, and science and technology. So if you're up for it, I will encourage your audience to reach out with their parents, check out the website through the Canadian Space Agency, and find how you can do these challenges. Again, they have just extended the deadline to the end of next month. So good luck, and I hope you enjoy that process.
Ashley. Thanks for watching. See you next time on TSMN Virtual.